Hello, it's Jane. Welcome back. I hope you've all been keeping well. We are still in winter time. It's a bit cold, and I'm in the conservatory. Anyway, today I'm coming to you about with part two of my initial reaction when I first got into UK. My last video goes on about house parties and the whole Kenyan vibe kind of in the party scene. But today I'm going to be talking about the practicality element of it. So I'm going to get straight into it. So the first one is the cost of living. I remember getting into UK and having to buy a mobile phone. It was £26. I think the exchange rate was like maybe 100. I can't remember, but I did the conversion very quickly and I was like, oh my god, this is a very small phone and it's so expensive. And that runs through with everything else, basic things like food, transport, your rent, everything. The numbers were always running in my head when I was trying to do anything. And then that is linked to the next point, which is the forex. So when I initially came, obviously you come in having the backdrop of the Kenyan shilling and you're converting everything to the pound. And that carried on, I would say, for at least the first 1 to 1.5 years. And then once I started making money in UK, like proper money, not like part-time work as a student, then it kind of dropped off. The first paycheck, you look at it, you go like, oh, it's a lot of money. And then the cost of living, how much you have to pay kicks in very quickly as well. And you realize this much money you're earning is not that much at all. But when you convert it into the Kenyan shilling, then you go like, it's a lot of money. But because your cost of living is also in the UK, it's not a lot of money. So the third thing I also noticed was family. So as I said in a previous video, I have a few cousins here, but of ultimate importance to me was that my brother was in UK as well. So I could ring him up and talk to him about anything and everything. And we were going through the same experiences. So he had come into the UK two months before me. So we were almost going through the same kind of experiences. But because he was 2 months ahead of me, so he was able to give me pointers and advice, which was very good for me. And onto the issue of family as well is this was 16-17 years ago. We did not have WhatsApp, so making phone calls to Kenya was quite expensive. So phoning my mom or my families or friend back in Kenya was very expensive. So I did not have a lot of link with them. So I quite heavily relied on my brother, be it text or be it phone calls, because I could afford to do that. The fourth thing, it's not very big for me, but it's food. I don't struggle. I don't have an insatiable need to have African food. There's some things I do like to have. For instance, mango. So mango is not, strictly speaking, it's not African, but it's a tropical fruit. I like that. And I find it very expensive here. And more so at the time. The other thing I struggled with was bananas. You got loads of bananas in the UK, but they don't have the same amount of sugar content. The African bananas I was used to have a lot of sugar, and I was used to that. So I struggled to get into eating bananas. But over time, this becomes your norm. But so other things I notice is like there's quite a few African people who bring things over or go to an African food shop to buy things they find back home. I never did that. But these are African food shops can be more expensive. They're quite expensive. They put quite a big margin because obviously this is specialty food. But also sometimes you have to go to the big cities to get them. So there's the transport of just getting there and getting your goods back, which adds to the cost of food. It doesn't bother me having rice or pastas or pizza. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't have a need for African food as such. The other thing I noticed was culture difference. So I came in late October and I was heavily involved with the church community, and that's because there was a community there. I did not go through the fresher week, so I needed to connect with people, make friends, and I went to church on Sunday and they had like an after mass kind of tea and biscuits, so I stayed for that, and that's how I made I made contact with that community. So that was good for me. Uh, and but it also introduced me to a cultural elements. I was not, I was learning of new cultures. So the first one I noticed is that um, I'm Catholic. I was baptized English, so I've changed faith. So it doesn't really. I'm liberal with faith, but it was quite interesting to see, like in a Catholic church here in UK, there's more older people. There's not as many young people. Uh, Going to a Catholic school in a university setting, you'll have more young people than you would find in a normal community outside a university. So it was good to see that, but there was also not as much judgment. So people would openly talk about their smoking, their drinking. So people who are in partnership and not married, and that the priest knew about that, and it was openly discussed. And there was no judgment. Obviously, the priest would say it's better to be married than not married. But if you're not married, they're not going to exclude you or look you in a different way than if you're married. And it was good to see that. And it was also like having discussions towards Christmas. They're asking everybody what they're doing for Christmas. And they're saying, oh, they're going to have a Christmas meal for anybody who's not traveling or doesn't have any company. And then we got talking about Christmas meal and Christmas food the whole Christmas setting in UK. So the meal itself is pretty much, it is a sit-down meal, but also tends to be smaller than it would be in an African setting. So having grown up in Kenya, partly in Nairobi and in Nyeri, my grandmother lives in Nyeri, which is like in the rural areas. And so everybody kind of goes went to their grandmother's house, and it was a big get together, and there's all food and the whole lot of celebration, but never ever was it a sit down meal. There's no formality on how you have a meal. It was more so a get together. There was no gift giving either, and here gift giving is quite big. There was other cultural element about your family is like it's the nuclear family. So was in my culture, the extended family helps us a lot. Here is not so much the case. And then there was also, the other thing I loved about it is that people don't just show up to your door on a Sunday or any other day. They'll make an appointment or say, can we come around for tea or for a chat? And I like that, because in my culture, people just show up to your door, knock the door. If food is being eaten, they will expect to be fed, because it's part of my African culture that you feed your visitors. I don't know anymore, but that's part of the African culture. And the other thing was accent. So in a university campus, the accent, you got different from everywhere, different people from everywhere. So you've got different accents, but the bottom line is that you can understand almost everybody. You don't have as much as you have like with the local or regional accent. So for instance, my husband is from Liverpool, and when he's with his friend, for a long time I didn't understand what they were saying. And it's the same thing with maybe people from the Geordies from Newcastle. I wouldn't understand what they're saying. So but they also have the capability to tone it down so that foreigners and other people can understand them. But I understood all my lecturers, but when I would be on the bus going into town, sometimes I had no idea what people were saying. And that's just accent. And maybe it's the same. No, not maybe. I know for sure it was the same for them. Probably could not fully understand what I was saying. The other thing is pace. Life in UK is very fast paced. So if you have to go to work, you get in rush hour traffic, but before you get into rush hour traffic, you've woken up, you've sorted out your dinner. If you've got kids, drop them off to school. If you need to think about what people are eating for tea, then get it from the freezer or get things sorted out, and then you've got to go to hit your rush hour, get to work, and then on your way back from work, if you've got kids, it's for another rush hour, picking up your kids from school, cooking and getting the kids ready for school. But it's very quick, it's very fast paced, but also it's like with your bill. So if you electric bill, your water bill, or gas bills, yeah, they're not going to disconnect you because you've not paid, but every month you're expected to pay and pay on time. But they're not going to disconnect you from those services. So I find the pace is very quick, and you have to learn to move with that. If you tell somebody, oh, I'm thinking of this, it's not a dream you have in the next few months. It's something you're actively thinking about, and you're looking to do it within the next week or so. So I had to get used to that very quickly. Uh, Racism. So I've left racism to very later on, because I now appreciate racism is an actual thing that can happen, but also it's a perception. So when I first got into UK, I was hyper aware I was a black person in a predominantly white country. I remember being on the train and feeling so conscious of myself, being super aware as a black person, and almost like having this fear in me. I could almost say I experienced racism, but in actual sense, it was all a perception I had in my mind. Nobody was looking at me, although I thought everybody was. And the first time my husband went to Kenya, he said the same thing. It's like he thought everybody was looking at him like he had two heads. Yeah, there was people looking at him in some areas, but I wouldn't say it was that bad. It was a glance and move on. But then there's also the racism where people calling you names. I've not encountered a lot of that. There's been a few occasions when it happened, but the UK racism is usually so subtle, where you might not get a job because they think you cannot fit in a team. That's what they tell you, but there's no way to prove it's to do with your skin color. And that's kind of why I left racism to the end, because it's a very subjective topic. I'm not saying racism does not exist, but I'm saying it's very hard to prove, and a big part of it is to do with myself as a person and my confidence, as well as my perception of what's happening around me. I do not generally walk about thinking people are being racist to me, people are taking away opportunities from me because I am a black person. But I'm 16 years in UK, so I'm in a very different position to when I first got in here. But I also don't want to get into the situation. So I'm in a university where they encourage you to talk about racism, and if you encounter such situations. So if somebody called me a name or was aggressive towards me in a way that was obviously racism, I probably would raise the issue with the unit. But generally speaking, I wouldn't, because you get caught up in paperwork, which is taking away my time and effort, my energy from really focusing on what I should be. And the last thing about UK is opportunities. So as I've said many times before, I grew up in a rural areas where there's limited opportunities in terms of career or any jobs. And the opportunity is a little bit more if you go to the urban areas, and more so in the bigger cities like in Nairobi. But I live in a smallish town. Well, it's not rural, but it's a small town. I wouldn't say it's a big town. And I do have my opportunities, and I'm able to access those opportunities. And the opportunities come in form of, if you want to change your career, like I'm currently in the middle of, I'm able to do that. I can source financing, but also it's quite generally accepted to be in uni when you're older. And when you go into the workplace, I don't look around and say, well, everybody in the junior levels is young, because people have the opportunity to change their careers, and because of that, you can belong in any career you go to at a lower level when you're trying to change your career. But also there's just the opportunity. For instance, for me, I work part-time in the hospital. I pick up my own shift when I want to, and that finances an element of my cost of living when I'm doing my degree. And that's an opportunity I almost think I would not have had in Kenya 16 years back. I don't know how it is today. And I do like that opportunity. But by the end of the day, it's just like anything else. You've got to wake up one day, have a plan, and decide to take those opportunities. There are sacrifices you have to make. But on the other hand, there's a whole lot of support that if you seek it. So yeah, so those are the various elements. I think it's 9 points I've made about my initial impact or what I thought of UK when I first came here. If you agree or disagree with any of these issues, please let me know below in the comment section. Also, please do like and share and subscribe to my channel. It really does help my small channel to grow. Thank you.